rest of the world where workers are workers can make more money and earn a decent living. We need to have, even here in Connecticut, low-wage workers, the lowest wage workers, their families are covered by Husky. Taxpayers end up paying the benefits for the low-wage workers in the fast food industry or at Walmart or at places like low-wage retail places. We need to raise the standards, and that's what unions do, and that's what this law will help raise the floor in Connecticut.
We're not really competing with Sri Lanka and India. We used to think we competed with Sri Lanka and India. Then we said, okay, let's compete with North Carolina and South Carolina because our jobs are going there. We've reduced the competitiveness of Connecticut down to the fact we're competing with Massachusetts and New York. There isn't much less. They passed it on the service workers because we're the ones that can't leave. The restaurants, we can't pick up and go. They were afraid the manufacturers would pick up and go. And, the bus drivers, that's great. We don't want sick people near our children. But they exempted the YMCA. The YMCA is the largest child care provider in the state of Connecticut. It just didn't make a lot of sense. The fatal flaw with a lot of this conversation at times, and I'm speaking as an employer, is they always think the employee-employer relationship is adversarial. It's not adversarial. I had a pretty good relationship with my employees. We were pretty flexible. We took care of our people. We rewarded our full-time and good employees. What this bill does is sort of make them all the same. If I had a benefit that I gave a full-time, long-time employee, now the recently hired part-time employee has the exact same benefit. So in an interest of fairness, the full-time ones feel like they're not getting enough.
What's it going to do in terms of how you manage the business now?
Short-term? Well, listen, there's only three ways to handle it. Short-term, if you can afford it and, you can work it into your business model, well, go ahead and do it, right? We had some sort of modified version of it. We did it for culinary stuff, what we could afford at the time. But to be frank, if you're in and around the 50 number, get underneath the 50 number, and so you could avoid the bill. And if you're above the 50 number, you might want to consider actually adding staff, converting everybody to full-time, part-time employees, so it takes them a lot longer to get to the benefit, and it gives you more flexibility. It's not the actual cost of paying somebody to stay out sick. It was always about the cost and flexibility about bringing somebody in to cover them. So you may need more employees to do that and to keep your business operating. Imagine a Friday night you go into a restaurant, got a bunch of employees that use their sick time because you can't question it, okay? They just have to take it. So you got a line out the door, but only half the restaurant's seated. Well, that could happen under this legislation as it sits right now. That was always the problem with our particular industry. Not all the other industries, not bus drivers, not this, in the restaurant business. And we, in the past, had managed it fairly well.
As you know, there was a lot of testimony that laid out the one place where paid sick leave has been in effect for quite a few years, for about 4 or 5 years in San Francisco, one of the heaviest restaurant cities in the country. The evidence has shown that employees don't use the sick leave. Most of them don't even use the amount of sick leave that they have. They're conscientious employees. There has been, in fact, an increase in employment. That paid sick leave has the employers, 2/3 of the employers say paid sick leave has been a great thing in San Francisco. And it starts in San Francisco, it moves to some other cities, now it's in Connecticut. Eventually this is going to be the law of the land, just like the minimum wage was, just like health and safety standards. And every employer fights these kinds of common sense laws which make a lot, which improve the lives of American workers, and this is just another example of that.
Dave, I'll give you the last word.
There's plenty of evidence out of San Francisco that we've read. We have reports, even from the Urban Policy Institute. This has not been a boom to employers in San Francisco. A lot of them have done away with certain benefits just to afford this benefit. There's a lot more to the conversation. This bill isn't like minimum wage. This bill isn't like unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance is a cost you bear to have employees, and essentially it's shared. The employee pays by lower wages, you pay by this tax or fee, whatever, for unemployment insurance. This is the first time that they've implemented a bill that could actually affect your ability to make revenue. If people call in sick, I cannot generate revenue in the restaurant if I don't have staff. So this is why this bill is inherently different than unemployment. Unemployment, I actually have to do something for them to get unemployment. I have to lay them off. So the bill is different. But we'll move on.
Well, thank you very much for coming and talking to us about it. I certainly appreciate it. Dave Rutigliano is the head of SBC Restaurants, and Paul Filson from the SEIU. Thank you so much,
Been a pleasure.
gentlemen, for being here. I
All right.
appreciate it. And now we'll go on to talk about a completely different topic, the weather across the country and right here in New England lately has been, well, downright scary, with tornadoes wiping out parts of towns, claiming lives as close to us as Massachusetts. Last week, as that terrible weather was about to hit the Springfield area, we talked with Peter Boynton, the Commissioner of the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for the state of Connecticut. Commissioner Boynton, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You're speaking at the Connecticut Science Center, which is opening, I might say, a very timely exhibit called Nature Unleashed, Inside Natural Disasters. Boy, have we seen nature unleashed all around the globe in the last few months.
Really have, and we've also seen it here in Connecticut. We had 2 tornadoes, EF1s, in Connecticut last year, one EF1 tornado in Connecticut the year before. We, of course, had a record winter season with very difficult snowstorms. So we've had our share of bad weather, and I think we have a good track record here in Connecticut of being resilient, withstanding the natural event and recovering quickly. And there are important things that everyone can do, whether you're a member of the government part of the team, or really the most important part of the team is the general public, and there's very important things that they can do.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute, but one of the things that concerns me is that in an area like Joplin, where there were over 130 deaths, one of the things that they said was that how could that happen in an area that is so attuned to the weather? Many people have weather radios in their homes, and they're accustomed to getting these tornado warnings and to having a plan about what to do. I think about us here in Connecticut. How many of us have a weather radio in our home or would actually even get a warning ahead of time? How would that be done?
Well, for example, the state purchased what's called a reverse 911 system over a year ago, and every town has access to that system free of charge. And towns, since we bought the system, have been increasingly using that. And it's a system whereby a town or a region can direct calls to houses in a neighborhood, a town, or an even larger area. Now, a very important feature of that, which Governor Malloy re-announced in New Haven about a month ago, is Connecticut Alert, where people can go on the CT Alert website and you can enter in your own information so that, for example, this system could call you on your cell phone.
Wow.
It could send you an email. So that's one system. Another system, of course, are the emergency radio broadcasts where that staticky sound comes over the radio. And a third system are the TV banners that run across the bottom of a TV screen. And we have really very good participation here. You know, you talk about a partnership.
Yes.
Participation with the media here, such as yourself, whether it's radio or TV, working with our State Emergency Operations Center to get the word out. And really, the record snowstorms was a great example of that. January 12th snowstorm, a record snowstorm. Governor Malloy got on the media multiple times and asked the public, stay off the roads so we can clear them. You know, as a result of that, the National Weather Service told us that Connecticut had more snow than any surrounding state in that storm, and yet our roads were open before the surrounding states that had less snow. It worked so well. The governor clearly has got a great approach getting the word out to the public, saying you have a role. In the case of that really bad snowstorm, the role was give us a chance to clear the roads. Now, the day after, the roads weren't perfect, but the main thoroughfares were passable. And what a great example of Connecticut getting back open for business, ready to roll.
Yeah. This is the beginning of the hurricane season, and as you were mentioning, a big part of what has to happen is that every family has to be prepared. So what are the things that you expect families to do?
Those are my 2 favorite words, be prepared, and I'm just thrilled that you said them.
I was a scout,
yes.
too.
Oh, very good. Indeed, the Atlantic hurricane season is the 1st of June until the 30th of November. It's a long season.
That is long.
But our main threat window here in Connecticut is generally mid-August to mid-October. Now, my kids are going to make fun of me. They always make fun of me when I say this, but I like that because it means they remember what I said.
Yeah.
And what the public needs to do is 3 things. They need to have a plan, they need to make a kit, and they need to stay informed. Now, stay informed means listen to the radio, watch the TV, sign up for CT Alert to stay informed for those bulletins. Make a plan means, what if there's a natural event and the phones go down? Have you identified with your family that if you can't reach each other with a local number, that here's an out-of-state phone number that all members of the family should call?
Interesting.
Very, very important. Sometimes the area code that you live in might have trouble, and yet you can still reach another area code. Or where do you text, for example? Another example of the plan is, where will the family meet? Well, naturally, we're going to meet at home. Well, what if the home is damaged? Where's the secondary meeting point? And you can't wait until the incident to make that very basic plan. And then the third step is have a kit. Even with the January 12th snowstorm and other snowstorms, there were times when families had to be on their own for a period of time until the road was opened. If we have a hurricane, that is likely to be more severe, and families may need to be on their own for several days. This is so important because we need the first responders, those great first responders in Connecticut, to be focused on those who truly need help, those who might be hurt. So if you're not hurt, we really don't want you taking up the first responder time. They need to help people who are hurt. You need to be prepared to be on your own. What does that mean? It means water, basic food, don't forget medicine, and some cash on hand. If, you know, we normally have a warning that bad weather or a significant event is on the way, gas up the car ahead of time, get the cash, get the food, make sure your medications are, you have enough on hand to get through a few days. Be prepared to be on your own. So 3 things, make a kit, have a plan, stay informed. Now, my kids are going to tease me today.
I'm sorry to have to bring that upon you, but what can you do about that? One of the things that was interesting about that is I think that, you know, people probably think they have a plan, but exactly what you said is what their plan is. We're all going to meet here. We're all going to call Daddy on his cell phone. And, you know, those 2 things may not be available. So
and it's very basic. You know, you can go on the DEMIS website, ct.gov/DEMHS DEMIS, and we have a place where you can fill out a family plan. It's just a one-page thing. You can go on the federal web page.
You can find out what happened if zombies show up.
That's right, with CDC. But Be Ready is the federal web page. You can go on and get those plans. It's very basic things, and this is very real. It's not necessarily the big thing you need to be prepared for. And what a great message for your children, to sit down with your children and to say, here's our basic plan, here's where we go to, here's who we call. Most people have relatives that live out of state. That's a great third number to call out of state if you need to. This year, hurricane season, there's a 10% chance that it will be less active than normal, a 25% chance that it will be normal. Now do the math.
Okay.
That means a 65% chance that it's going to be a worse than normal hurricane season. So those 2 favorite words, we really need everyone to be ready.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you one last thing, and that is, I don't think that the details have emerged yet, but there has been discussion about consolidating some of our emergency services agencies. What do we know about what's going to happen with that?
Well, we're working very closely, myself and Commissioner Bradford, merging what our agency currently is, Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, with what their agency currently is, Department of Public Safety. It'll be merged into an agency with a new name. It'll include other agencies as well, and this is all in support of the governor's imperative to consolidate government. We all agree that has to be done, and so we're working to get the details right so that we can support the governor with this tremendous initiative to consolidate government and come out the other end not with less, but to do more and to do it better. And I think if we do this right, we can accomplish, there's no question we can accomplish the governor's vision.
Well, Commissioner, it's been so good having you with us. Thank you so much for spending some time. I'm going home to put my kit together.
Very good.
Thank you. Commissioner Peter Boynton has been with us talking about disaster preparedness as hurricane season gets underway in Connecticut. And now a look at what you'll see on CTN Live today. Both the House and the Senate are in session. The House is scheduled for 10 o'clock, while the Senate has announced its session for 12 noon. Whichever chamber starts